There is a country in the middle of the Atlantic that, by every rule of the land, should not be able to feed itself. It is 10 small islands of bare volcanic rock, with almost no farmable soil, no rivers, and rain that fails for years at a time. Most of the food on its tables arrives by ship from somewhere else because the ground beneath its people simply cannot grow enough to keep them alive, and yet they are not starving. They have been living here for centuries. So if the land cannot feed them, something else must. And the answer is the one thing this country has always had: an endless, unlimited supply. The ocean that surrounds it on every side. But here is where it stops being obvious, because feeding a whole nation from the sea sounds easy until you realize how they actually do it. Not with giant trawlers, not with factory ships and mile-long nets. They do it with small wooden boats, a length of line, and a single hook, hauling fish as heavy as a grown man out of the deep Atlantic, one at a time, by hand. Think about how the food gets to you. It grows on farms, on land, watered by rivers and rain, and it comes to you through a long, invisible chain you never have to think about. Now take the farmland away. Take the rivers, take the reliable rain, take the soil itself down to bare rock in the middle of the ocean. What do you have left? You have water, endless salt water in every direction. Beautiful and useless to a hungry stomach, unless you can pull something living out of it. That is the problem Cape Verde was handed. And the way they solved it is one of the oldest, hardest, and quietly cleverest things people still do anywhere on Earth. This is Cape Verde, a nation that gave up on being fed by its land a long time ago and turned to face the sea instead. And here, at least, the sea was willing. These islands sit in open ocean where deep, cold, nutrient-heavy water rises toward the surface and feeds an explosion of life, right on the routes that great migrations of tuna travel across the Atlantic. It was one of the very few gifts the geography here ever gave freely. Waters far more generous than the land ever was. The islands themselves might be barren rock, but the sea around them teems. For a people the land had abandoned, that was everything. The easy answer is the one you are already picturing. If you live surrounded by fish, just build big boats and big nets and haul it in by the ton, the way the modern world feeds itself. And that is exactly how most of the fish on the planet is caught. But Cape Verde could never do that. It is a small country and a poor one. It never had the money to build an industrial fishing fleet, never had the factory ships that freeze a catch at sea and process it by the thousands of tons. What it had was fishermen, small, open wooden boats, and the sea. So they could not fish the easy way. They had no choice but to fish the old way. The hard way. The way people fished for thousands of years before engines and freezers existed. By hand. One fish at a time. And on these islands, that has never stopped being how a nation gets fed. If people wringing a life out of an impossible place is the kind of thing you are here for, subscribe. There is a lot more of it coming. To understand what that really means, you have to picture the fish at the center of it. The price in these waters is the yellowfin tuna, and a tuna is not a gentle catch. A big one can weigh as much as a grown man, sometimes more. It is built like a torpedo, all muscle, and it can swim faster than the boat chasing it. When it is hooked, it does not give up. It dives, it runs, it fights with a raw power that has to be felt to be believed. And the men of Cape Verde catch that fish with a handline. Not a rod, not a reel, not a winch or a net. A single line, with a single hook on the end, held and hauled by hand from a small open boat out on the deep water. When a tuna takes the hook, what follows is a straight contest of strength and endurance between one man and one enormous fish. The line cutting into his hands, the boat rocking, the fish pulling hard enough to drag a careless fisherman clean over the side. It can go on for a long time. And at the end of it, if he wins, one fish comes over the gunwale. Just one. Then he baits the hook, and he does it again. There is a particular kind of exhaustion in that work that has nothing to do with machines. The sun overhead, the salt drying on your skin, the line burning across your palms, the deep water beneath a boat small enough that a big fish can rock it. Every tuna is earned with the whole body, and every tuna is a gamble. With the weather, with the fish, with the sea itself. Men have been lost doing this. And still, every morning, the boats go out, because the alternative is a nation that does not eat. It is almost absurdly inefficient compared to a factory ship dropping a net the size of a stadium. And that inefficiency is exactly where the second surprise hides. Because when you fish one fish at a time, on a single hook, you catch only what you are aiming for. The great industrial nets that feed the rest of the world do not just scoop up tuna. They scoop up everything in their path. Dolphins, turtles, sharks, whole species that were never the target, killed by the thousands and thrown back dead. The Cape Verdean handline does none of that. A hook in the water cannot accidentally drown a dolphin or crush a turtle. What poverty forced on these fishermen? The slow, patient, one-at-a-time way turns out to be one of the cleanest, most selective ways to fish left anywhere on the planet. They are not doing it to be virtuous. They are doing it because it is all they have. But the result is a fishery that takes from the sea without gutting it. There is a lesson buried in that the whole overfished world is slowly, painfully starting to relearn. The problem with modern fishing was never that people ate fish. It was the scale and the blindness of it. Nets so big and so indiscriminate that they empty whole stretches of ocean and kill far more than they keep. The Cape Verdean way points at the alternative without even meaning to. Take one fish at a time, take only what you are after, and take no more than the sea can replace. It is a slower, it is harder, and it may be the only version of fishing that still has a future. And the tuna is only the headline. Most days, the real work is smaller and closer to shore. Nets and lines bringing in sardinella, mackerel, and horse mackerel, the everyday fish that actually fill the plates and markets of the islands. This is the quiet backbone of the country's food, the protein that a land of bare rock could never provide, pulled fresh from the water every single day. You see it every morning on the islands. The small boats coming back in through the surf, and the whole life of a fishing town gathering at the water's edge to meet them. The fish carried up the beach in baskets, sorted and weighed and sold right there where they land, the money and the food moving through the community in the space of an hour. It is not an industry in the way the word usually means. It is closer to a heartbeat, the same rhythm every single day that has kept these islands alive. And because fresh fish does not last long in a hot climate with no refrigeration to spare, the old skill runs underneath all of it. What cannot be eaten today is split, salted, and dried in the sun, turned into food that will keep for the lean weeks when the boats cannot go out. Step back and look at what these small boats add up to, and it is remarkable. A whole nation, unable to feed itself from its land, feeding itself instead from the sea. By hand, boat by boat, hook by hook. The artisanal fishermen of Cape Verde supply the majority of the fresh fish the country eats, and give a living to thousands of families who would otherwise have almost nothing. On islands that grow so little, the sea is not a hobby or a holiday. It is the difference between eating and not eating. And it shapes the whole country. Fishing, along with the tourists who come for the beaches, is one of the two things that actually holds the economy together. In the coastal towns, the sea is the employer, the market, and the pantry all at once. A boy grows up learning the water the way a farmer's son elsewhere learns the fields, reading the swell, the wind, the seasons of the fish. Because on an island of stone, that knowledge is not just a trade. It is the family's whole claim on the future. If a giant tuna hauled in on a single hook, by hand, is the kind of thing you came here for, do me a favor and subscribe. It genuinely helps this channel keep going. But there is a hard, bitter truth sitting underneath this whole story, and it would be dishonest to leave it out. Because Cape Verde's fishermen are not the only ones fishing these waters. The seas around these islands are rich, and rich seas attract powerful visitors. Under international agreements, large industrial fleets from wealthy nations far away, from Spain, from France, from Portugal, are allowed to fish Cape Verde's waters, and the scale of it is staggering when you set it beside the little wooden boats. Cape Verde's own fishermen, all of them together, land somewhere around 2,500 tons of tuna a year to feed their own country. The foreign fleets, with their freezer ships and their long lines and their nets, are permitted to take as much as 7,000 tons a year out of those same waters, nearly 3 times what the entire local fleet catches. Fish pulled from a poor country's own sea, frozen on board, and carried away to be sold somewhere richer. Picture the two side by side. A Cape Verdean fisherman, alone in a small open boat, straining on a single line to bring in one tuna he will sell to feed his family. And on the horizon behind him, a gray factory ship, hauling in more in a day than his whole village will catch in a season. Same saya. Same fish. Two completely different worlds, and the smaller one always loses on volume. And it is not really a fair fight, because it was never built to be one. The agreements that let those distant fleets in are negotiated far from these beaches, on terms a small nation has little leverage to change. So the fish that might have fed Cape Verde, or grown a Cape Verdean industry of its own, is often frozen in the hold of a faraway ship instead, bound for a market that will never know where it came from. For these islands, it echoes an old and familiar shape, the richest thing about the place leaving it, while the people who live here make do with whatever is small enough to be left behind. And that is the trade-off at the center of it all. The handline will never win a fight about numbers. A man with a hook cannot outfish a freezer signer, and he never will. But what he does in a way the factory ship never could. He takes only what he aims for. He leaves the dolphins and the turtles alone. He does not strip the sea bare and move on to the next country, because this is not the next country. This is his home, and he needs it to still hold fish tomorrow and the year after, and for his children. His way is small and slow and hard, and it is the only way that actually keeps both the people and the sea alive at the same time. So this was never really a story about fish. It is the last piece of a much bigger one. The story of what a people does when they are handed a place that seems to offer them nothing. Because think about everything these islands did not have. They had no forests, so they learned to build their homes out of black volcanic stone that keeps them cool with no power at all. They had no rivers and almost no rain, so they learned to pull drinking water out of the fog on the ridges and the salt sea on the coast. They had no fertile fields, so they carved the bare slopes into terraces and trapped the flash floods behind walls of stone until the ground would grow a little corn. And when all of that together still was not enough to fill every plate, they turned and faced the ocean, and they learned to take just enough from it, by hand, to live. Every single time, the land told them no, and every single time, they found the one door it had left open, and they walked through it, not with machines or money or power they did not have, but with patience and cleverness and a flat refusal to accept that a hard place is an impossible one. It is worth sitting with that for a moment, because it is easy to pity a place like this, to see only the bare rock, the imported food, and the small boats, and call it poor. But look again at what these people actually built on top of almost nothing, and pity feels like the wrong word entirely. They are among the most resourceful people you will ever come across, precisely because they were never once handed the option of being anything else. The land gave them a brutal education, and they passed it, generation after generation, in the only school that never lies: survival. Anyone can live where the land is generous. It takes something rarer to build an entire way of life on the edge of what should be uninhabitably, on bare rock, in the middle of the ocean, with a sun that will not quit and a sea that will not stop. And to do it not by conquering any of it, but by understanding it and working with the little it offers, one stone and one drop, and one fish at a time. That is the real lesson of these islands, and it is one the rest of us may need sooner than we think. As the easy places grow harder and the reliable things grow unreliable, the world is slowly rediscovering exactly the kind of patient, low-tech, work with what you have ingenuity that Cape Verde was never allowed to forget. They were simply forced to learn it first because they had no other choice. If you want to keep discovering how people survive and thrive in the most impossible corners of the world, subscribe and stay with us. There are a lot more of them out there than you would ever believe.